For anyone who missed today's lesson on rotating a figure with a center of rotation not around the origin, we're on page 199 in the IM curriculum in Unit 6. So this is lesson number 1. Here is a figure H. First, predict where each transformation will land. Next, carry out the transformation. So the first part is we're just going to focus on number 1, rotating figure H clockwise around the center point 2, 0 by 90 degrees. So if you remember from previous lessons, when we rotate a figure, we first need to talk about which direction we're rotating, either clockwise or counterclockwise, how many degrees, and then we also need to mention the center of rotation. And so far, we've only rotated figures with the center of rotation around the origin, which is 0, 0. So we need to first remember that there are some transformation rules, and then I'll give you some steps that you need to follow in order to successfully rotate around a center that is not the origin. So some reminders for transformation rules is if you're rotating counterclockwise, I'm going to write CCW for counterclockwise. It's going to look like this, like you're going against time, so it's rotating to the left. And if it's counterclockwise 90 degrees, we're going to go from X, Y to Y, X. We're going to swap them, and then we're going to write the opposite sign for X. So whatever is in this first position over here where the new X value is, we're going to just write the opposite sign. So we have X, Y becomes negative Y, X. And remember, I'm really stressing that it's the opposite sign because then if you have like a negative value for X, right, then when we swap them, let me give you an example. So let's just say I have negative 5, right, as an example, negative 2. What we're going to do is we're going to first swap them. Okay, so it becomes negative 2, negative 5. And whatever this first value is, my new X, I'm going to write the opposite sign. So the opposite of negative 2 would have been positive 2. So I would really have 2, negative 5. So that's my example. And we're going to revisit this later. So just keep that in mind. The second transformation for rotation rule is 180 degrees counterclockwise, which is X, Y. Is going to be transformed to negative X, negative Y. And the last one, we have 270 degrees counterclockwise. We have X, Y. That's going to change to, we're going to swap them. So Y and X. And then this time, whatever is in the second value here, my new Y, that's going to have the opposite sign. So if you remember rules about counterclockwise, we will then have some information about clockwise. So let's just say the problem said clockwise, which it does over here, the one that we're looking at, says clockwise by 90 degrees. How can we then use this reference to help us determine which rule we're going to use? Well, if you remember, we can just do 360 minus 90 to get 270 degrees. So 90 degrees counterclockwise is the same thing as 270 degrees clockwise. Similarly, if I have 180 degrees, we kept telling you that it doesn't matter if it's 180 degrees clockwise or counterclockwise, because if I do 360 degrees minus that 180 degrees, I get 180 again. So 180 degrees counterclockwise is the same as 180 degrees clockwise. And then the last one is 270 degrees counterclockwise. To find clockwise, I just subtract 270 from 360, and I end up getting 90 degrees clockwise. So you can just pause this video and take note of that, write some notes down for yourself so you remember counterclockwise and clockwise and how to convert between the two. All right, so remember we're only focusing on rotating figure H clockwise around the center 2, 0 by 90 degrees first. Now clockwise, 90 degrees is the same thing as counterclockwise, .360 minus that 90, which is equal to 270. And if I look at my reference here, what we're going to use for this problem is this rotation rule over here. I'm going to highlight it, where we have x comma y is going to become y comma and an opposite sign of x. Alrighty. So now that we got the rotation rules covered, we're first going to identify the points on figure H. And we're going to label them A, B, C, D, just to make it easier for ourselves. So I'm going to put a point here and label this A in red. And I'm going to label this with the coordinate point of 2, 0. And I'll go ahead and label the next point B, 4, 0. And the next point here, I'm going to go counterclockwise. This is going to be C, and this is at 4, 3. And the last one over here is going to be D, and the coordinates for that is 2, 2. All right, I'm going to start with A. So I'm going to highlight this, and we're going to rotate point A clockwise around the center 2, 0 by 90 degrees, or it's the same thing as counterclockwise, 270 degrees, as we talked about earlier. So there are 3 steps that you're going to follow because the center is not at the origin. First step, I'm going to write it out right here. Step number 1 is you're going to take the center of rotation and we're going to subtract that from the point. Okay. So let's write that out and see what that does to A. So A was 2, 0, and my center of rotation is 2, 1 right here, the center. Let's highlight that in green because the center is really important. And what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the center from the coordinate points of A. So 2 minus 2, and then we have 0 minus 0. We always subtract the center of rotation from each point first. That is step number 1. So then I have A is 0, 0. 2 minus 2 is 0, 0 minus 0 is 0. All right, so that's step number 1. Step number 2, I'm going to write over here, is we're going to apply the rotation rule. And remember, here we're focusing on a 90-degree clockwise rotation or 270 degrees counterclockwise rotation. So my rule for this entire problem, for number one, the first part of it, is x comma y goes to y comma negative x. And then negative again is the opposite sign for my new y value. So let's see what that looks like for A. A we have currently at 0, 0. And when I swap them, guess what? I'm going to get again 0, 0. And in fact, we're going to make the second value, my new y value, negative. But as you know, there's no negative 0. So we're going to keep it as 0, 0. And then we're going to do step number 3. So we're almost there. After applying the rotation rule for step number 3, what we're going to do is add back the center of rotation. All right, so we're going to take A, which is now at 0, 0 at the origin now. And what we're going to do is add back the 2 and the 0. So I'm writing right underneath it. And that gives us A at 2, 0. Oh, so I'm going to go here and then mark my new point, A. I should really write A prime, because that's after a transformation happened, which is our rotation here. And it happened to be at the same exact location as A. So A prime and A are actually at the same location. And this makes sense because we're rotating around the center point 2, 0. So A actually doesn't change. So it's going to overlap. So there I'm going to write A prime. So A prime is also actually at this location. Alrighty, so I'm going to make myself more room by erasing all of this work, and we're going to follow the steps again, but for our next point. So we're going to do point B next. But we're going to follow the same steps. So the same steps are still there, but next we're going to focus on B. So B, we have 4, 0. That's how we started. And step 1 was subtract center rotation from each point. So again, our center was 2, 0. So we're going to take our center, we're going to subtract the 2 from the 4, and we're going to subtract the 0 from the 0. And we end up getting B as 2, 0. All right, so we're here right now. That's step 1. Step number 2 is apply the rotation rule. So now I have B as 2, 0. And I need to swap the X and the Y value first. So I end up getting B prime as 0, 2. And then now what I want to do is write the opposite sign for my new Y value. So that's going to be a negative right here. So I have B prime is 0, -2. That's step number 2 after applying the rotation rule. Step number 3 is add back the center of rotation. So I'm going to take this B prime at 0, -2, and we're going to add back what we subtracted from step 1, which is adding the 2 to our x value and adding the 0 to our y value. And we end up getting that b prime is at 2, comma, negative 2. That is our final answer for this first part here for question number 1. And in yellow, I'm going to locate 2, comma, negative 2. So 2, comma, negative 2 is going to be right here. It's kind of hard to see with that yellow, so I'm going to change that to a different color. Let's do a pink. Alrighty, so let's label A prime as pink 2, and then my B prime was at 2, comma, negative 2, which is right here. Okay, and I'm going to label that B prime. Alrighty, now it's time for our C. I'm trying to find out what C prime is going to be. Feel free to pause this video and do it on your own and then come back to check your work. So we did B, and now we're on to C. So C, I have 4, comma, 3. We're going to do step 1, which is subtract center of rotation from each point. Now I'm going to subtract the 2 from the 4, and I'm going to subtract the 0 from the 3. And we end up getting that C is going to be at 2, comma, 3. Underline that for you. So then step 2 is apply that rotation rule. Again, we're still doing a clockwise rotation of 90 degrees slash a counterclockwise rotation of 270 degrees. So they're the same, right? So it's the same rule. So we're going to take C, which is 2, comma, 3. And what we're going to do is swap them, the x and the y. So we get C prime is going to be 3, comma, 2. And again, we're going to make that second value, our new y value, the opposite sign. So because right now it's positive, we're going to make it negative. So C prime is going to be 3, comma, negative 2. And step number 3 is going to be adding back the center of rotation, because again, we subtracted it from step number 1 from the original coordinates. So let's add them back. So C prime I have here, I'm going to write it out again as 3, comma, negative 2. And we're going to add back our center. So we're going to add back the 2 to our x value and then the 0 to our y value. And C prime is going to be at 5, comma, negative 2. All right, let's go back to our grid here and label again in pink our C prime. So 5, comma, negative 2 is going to be right in the middle of 4 and 6, and I'm going to locate that negative 2 over there on my y-axis. That point there is going to be our C prime. All right, we're almost there. So we're just missing our D prime. All righty, we're going to start again at step number 1. So let's highlight the original D value. D was 2, comma, 2. And what we're going to do is subtract the center of rotation. So I'm going to subtract the 2 from the 2, and I'm going to subtract the 0 from the 2. Because again, our center was at 2, comma, 0. Alrighty, and that gives us that D is 0, comma, 2. Underline that for you for step number 2. So step number 2 was apply the rotation rule. I have 0, 2 right now. Remember, we're going to swap the x and the y value first. And we're going to get d prime is 2, 0. And then we're going to write the opposite sign for our new y value. Whatever is in the y value right now, we're going to just write the opposite sign. And again, because it's 0, there's no negative 0, I'm going to just leave that as 0. Alrighty. And finally, step number 3, we're going to add back the center of rotation. So we're going to take this value, d prime, at 2, 0, and we're going to add back the 2 and the 0. And we end up getting that d prime is at 4, 0. So that's going to be our final answer for this first part for number 1. Okay, let's go back to our grid now. And let's locate d prime. So 4, 0 is right over here. And we're going to label this as d prime. All right, now it's time to do the fun part, which is connecting all of the points here. So what we're going to do is connect A prime with B prime, C prime, and D prime. And we end up with this rotated figure, and we only did the first part. So then the second part, I'll highlight in red, is then we need to translate the image by the directed line segment from this first point here, 2, 0, to this new point here, 3, -4. Now, I want to first plot those points. So I have 2, 0 right here. Let's use a different color this time. 2, 0s right here. And I'm going to also plot 3, -4. So 3, -4 is going to be right here. And I am basically taking my new H, rotated H, and I'm going to be translating it. So the orientation is going to stay the same, but I need to then figure out how I am translating this. So I'm going to zoom in over here for a moment. And if you remember, I'm going to count the distance between these 2 points. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go down 4, and I'm going to go to my right 1. So I'm going to do that with all the points. As a matter of fact, I already did A prime. So when I transform that, I mean, you can write it as A double prime. Okay, so this point here is A double prime. And B is going to be, B prime was right here, right? So let me highlight that for you. B prime was right here. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go to my right 1. So over here it's B double prime. And I'm going to do that with every point. So I'm going to locate C prime. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and I go to my right 1. So this is C double prime. And lastly, I have D prime right here. I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to go to my right 1. So this is going to be D double prime. And again, we're up to our fun part, which is going to be connecting all of these points. And that's going to actually be our final answer for this whole question, for question number 1. Now remember, it was in 2 parts. First, we rotated this blue figure, the original figure that was given. We rotated it 90 degrees clockwise, centered at 2, 0, or you can think of it as 270 degrees counterclockwise, centered at 2, 0, following all 3 steps for every point. Then we translated the image that we got, the black image over here, and we got, I should really select a different color. So actually, let's outline this one in yellow to make it special. Okay, so now from the black image, we then got to the yellow image by taking every point and going down 4 and to the right 1. And we know it's down 4 and to the right 1 because they told us that it was the translation of the image by this directed line segment from 2 points here that we indicated. And these 2 points told us that they were 4 units down from each other and 1 unit to the right. You could also go 1 unit to the right first and then 4 units down, so it's the same thing.